gathered in the upper room, just waiting for the spark. A flame that shook the shadows, it lit up every heart. Each tongue began to sing aloud, no borders held them down. A story forged in courage from the cities to the towns. Rise up, feel the fire inside. Take the call, let the spirit guide. Every step, every word that we act, we're living out the book of Acts. The chains were breaking open, the blind began to see. Prison walls crumbled down, they walked out free. With love as their banner, they turned the world around. A revolution started with echoes of the sound. Rise up, feel the fire inside. Take the call, let the spirit guide. Every step, every word that we act, we're living out the book of Acts. We carried light through all the lands, through storms and trials with steady hands. From the streets to every soul, the mission clear, the gospel whole. Now here we stand in modern days, their mission still alive. The echoes of their bravery in every heart survive. So let's be bold and take our place. The time to act is near. The message moves eternally. It's loud and crystal clear. Rise up, feel the fire inside. Take the call, let the spirit guide. Every step, every word that we act, we're living out the book of Acts. Rise up, feel the fire inside. Take the call, let the spirit guide. Every step, every word that we act, we're living out the book of Acts. Rise up, stand tall, don't look away. Love's the anthem, they can't decay. Chains will break as truth shines through. Jesus gave his name to me, and yeah, you. Rise up, feel the fire inside. Take the call, let the spirit guide. Every step, every word that we act, we're living out the book of Acts.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to our leadership study in Acts, April and Acts. Although we're going to extend a little bit into May, but the name still works. It was clever. What can I say? Awesome, awesome. And I just realized that that is not true. We're not doing Proverbs and that today. Let me remove that from our presence. Yes, it was true. 2 days ago. Oh, the fun, the fun, the fun. Okay, so let's just dive in. We're going to be reading from the amplified version of the Bible today, and so we'll be getting into um, as soon as I actually share it and that sort of thing. Maybe the words on the screen would be helpful for you, not necessary, but helpful. Um, but in any case, reading from Proverbs. Did it again. Did it again. Acts 18. This is talking about Paul's experiences in Corinth. So let's dive right into this today. So, after this being the experience in Athens, uh, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla. Because the Roman Emperor Claudius had issued an edict that all the Jews should leave Rome. This action may have been prompted by conflicts within the Jewish community caused by the spread of Christianity. Um, yeah. So, so Aquila and Priscilla. These names are important, especially from Luke's account. Just foreshadowing. Paul went to see them, and because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them, and they worked together, for they were tent makers. Mhm. Seems like that should have been flipped. They were tent makers. They were the same trade, whatever. The way the translation works out. And he reasoned and debated in the synagogue every Sabbath. Again, this was his habit, right? Trying to persuade Jews and Greeks. But when Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, or northern Greece, Paul began devoting himself completely to preaching the word and solemnly testifying to the Jews that Jesus is the Christ, Messiah, the Anointed. I think I had not really put this together until just now, the whole devoting himself completely. So he was working prior to that. So basically, what I'm coming to here is that it's a repeating pattern in a way. But Paul, we see here that he's a tent maker, and that's his, um, I guess you could say, occupation or whatever. That's what he does for money. And so he's supporting himself, which is there's been back and forth on whether people should be supporting themselves and doing ministry out of that, working in a place and also ministering, or just being supported from home and doing the ministry with that support. And I don't have the answers here. I don't have the this is the way to do it kind of thing. I don't possess that. So if you're looking for that, I'm sorry. But what I can tell you is that we see an example here where Paul works for a while, and then apparently triggered by when Silas and Timothy came down. Now, I don't know if that means that he had saved up enough money to do this, or if it's just something where he was just operating in faith that everything would be okay from that point. But for whatever reason, when Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, he goes completely full time, devoting himself completely to that, implying that he was not as active in the ministry except for the Sabbath, is what that's kind of implying here. So I'm not sure what that means. But if they work together, that means that he was more than likely pouring his character into them along with the process. And so, because of what we know of what becomes with Priscilla and Aquila, that there is a significance there. So I can't say that that's um, a bad thing here or anything like that, for sure. Verse 6. But since the Jews kept resisting and opposing him and blaspheming God, he shook out his robe and said to them, "Your blood, damnation, be on your own heads." And remember, this is a symbol of like shaking out your feet, shaking out your robe. It's a sign of "I'm done with you" kind of thing. So it's yeah. So your blood will be on your own hands. I am innocent of it. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles. Starting to see a little bit of Paul's temper here, which, by the way, I feel like bringing this up that it's a conversation that my pastor and I had recently. That the affliction that Paul had, this thorn in the side, this irritation that he had. A lot of people interpret that as a physical affliction. Like I've heard everything from handshakes to like literal like he had pains in his side kind of things. But as we were discussing and now reading this again and realizing that there were certain things that I think leaders deal with, and there can be a frustration that happens when people are actively resisting and talking things about you and doing all these things behind your back and all these various things that can happen. That there can be flare-ups with the anger. Me personally, I think from what I see in a pattern here, I choose to believe that, or at least to orient myself towards that thorn in the side actually being his temper. And for him, it is obviously one of those things he wishes he didn't have. Um, yeah, for hopefully obvious reasons about his past, but it does come out, and this is Paul just saying, you know what, I'm done with all the um, all the backbiting and the constant drama and that sort of thing. And I can relate. Um, Even today, I had some drama brought up to me, and it has now become something where this is now in my world, and I really, really wish it wasn't. I don't really want to deal with the um, the drama, the accusations, the what is my opinion about it, the what am I going to do about it because I'm involved, all these kind of things that come up. I don't want. I want to help people be better leaders, and I want to see people drawn to Christ. That's what I want. But I'm drawn into this now, and so it's one of those things where I understand completely, how these kind of things would go. I would also say, and this came up recently, in terms of um, political type stuff, where people will probably say things like, "Oh, you have this opinion or not that opinion or whatever," and they'll label me, which is frustrating for me. Um, but there comes a degree at point, comes a point at some degree where there's the battle's lost in my mind, where it's just like, especially when an entire state or area has gone completely off the rails, and you have just become noise in that environment. So there comes a point where you have to cut your losses and move on. And a lot of people seem to think that, and I've talked about this before, but that they seem to think that they have a natural or an innate call to stay where they are. Um, I'm actually going to go full screen with this. I want this to be heard and understood. Um, there we go. What we see here in Acts is Paul saying, you know what, I'm not effective here, and you know what, me trying to be, because this is my default setting, is not working, and so I'm going to go to the Gentiles. Now he he doesn't do any quiet quitting here. He kind of does that whole um, making a show of leaving. Um, that was cultural. Do we do that these days? Is that justified these days? I don't think so. But at the same time, what I will bring up on this is that um, it's important to realize here that sometimes you can be in situations where you have just become noise among them, and they are not listening, and there are others that could be, and so you to just keep pounding away at people that are not listening to you, you're casting your pearls before swine here, and there comes a point where you need to say, okay, wait, is this because it's my call? Hear me. Is this because it's my calling to do this? Is God wanting me here and equipping me to be here? This is important. Is God equipping me to be here? Or am I just continuing what I'm doing because I'm either stubborn or ignorant? But there's another problem, and this is the one that is going to bite a bit. Am I staying where I am because I have selfish reasons for doing so that I don't realize? Let me give you an example. If you are frustrated with the state you're living in, for example, I'm trying to call out anybody specific here, but I'm just saying, if you are not wanting to leave because it's your home, that is a selfish reason. Is that your home? I'm pretty sure that belongs to God, like everything else. I'm just saying, if that's your reason, if that's your motivation for staying, is because you stamp your feet and say, this is my home, is that really a call to ministry? Is that really where you're at? Or is it that you are being essentially selfish? And I hate to say pig-headed, that's not what I'm getting at. It's more of just, are you allowing those thoughts to justify you staying in a position where you are now feeling like you are um, locked in, I guess you could say. And again, I have lots of friends in this situation, family members in this situation, quite literally, where they just don't want to be there anymore, and they feel like the fight is just not going. The fight is not worth fighting anymore. Yet they keep fighting. Now, again, hear me. If God is calling you, He is also equipping you. What is clear to me, looking at this in Scripture here, is that I don't see Paul being equipped. Let's go to this again. Do you see anything where he began debating himself, preaching the word, solemnly testifying to the Jews? But since the Jews kept resisting and opposing him and blaspheming God, he shook out his robe. Does that seem like he's saying, well, you know what? Some are going, some are not. You know, I've got enough of successes. I feel like God's keeping me here. We're not seeing any of that. What we're seeing is that there was just a level of resistance that was much higher than his level of success. And sometimes the reality is you have to cut your losses and move on. Um, and I know you're all sitting there saying, DJ, get to the point. What's the leadership trait here? The leadership trait here is you cannot lead people that don't want to be led. You cannot lead people that don't want to be led. It doesn't matter how inspiring you are. It doesn't matter how right you are. It doesn't matter how you can win the argument. The bottom line is, if they don't want to be led by you, or they don't want to be led, period, you're not going to lead them. That's just the truth. I hate that that's true sometimes, all the time, let's be honest. But that is the truth. If I could win an argument and magically get people onto my side, that'd be great. But I tell you what, I've been doing my best at debate and argument and all these kind of art forms for 33 years now. Quite literally 33 years I've been working towards these kind of things actively. And the thing I determined about roughly 9 years ago was just this reality that there is a level of effort and a level of return that does not work here. I hate that it's true, but it is absolutely true. That there is just a point where I have to say, no, this is not worth the effort because God is not equipping me to do this. And just simply bang people over the head that I'm right and they're wrong in several years of doing that. I'm thinking of all the people that ever said, "You know what? You're right. I'm gonna believe what you believe." Let's see. Count. Yeah. Carry the one. Zero. None. None have ever done that. 0.0000000. None. Not one. In all those years of trying to debate and win people over by proving that they're wrong, it has never worked. If you are just simply giving the word and people are not hearing it, if you cannot do any good in your hometown, for example, I mean, even Jesus couldn't because of this whole stubbornness. Is the exact same kind of thing. So Paul said, "We're done. We're done here. I've done I've done what I can. You know who I am. You know what I stand for, and you've heard the truth. If you don't accept truth, then I can't make you. Can't lead anyone who doesn't want to be led." We're only to verse 7. Deej got to preaching. Deej got to preaching. But you know what? It had to be said. Partially to me. I'm actually facing some of this right now. So I have to think long and hard about this. So then he moved on from there and went to the house of a man named Titius Justus. Titus. Gotcha. Titus. That works. What can I know about him? Who worshipped God and whose house was next door to the synagogue. Crispus, the leader of the synagogue, believed in the Lord together with his entire household, joyful acknowledging him as the Messiah and Savior, and many of the Corinthians who heard Paul's message were believing and baptized. Oops. I mean, sometimes this is another leadership trait we're seeing the fruits of, and that is you have to take a risk. You have to risk a lot, especially to be a Christian in any of these kind of positions. And this is actually what I'm facing right now is drama from both sides. You know, there's those that are opposing me, or not opposing me, like dismissing me because of my beliefs, and then there's those that have the same beliefs that are criticizing me. It happens, right? But here we see that Paul took a stand and said, you know, no, this is what we're doing now, and people went with him, which is probably, you know, like, not that I justify the whole like rage quitting kind of thing, but there's obviously some results here. So mark that blue as a result of these. Verse 9. One night the Lord said to Paul in a vision, "Do not be afraid anymore, but go on speaking and do not be silent. Ooh. For I am with you, and no one will attack you in order to hurt you, because I have many people in this city." Sorry, I'm having a vulnerable moment here. There's just a I wish that I had a clarity all the time like that. Like there was just a clear message. Um, but I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, a couple days ago, that there was a conversation, one of those 3 a.m., literally 3 a.m. conversations with God, and it was in regards to all this. And I'm I'm praying to have my needs met. I'm praying to say, look, God, I've got zero cash flow coming in. It's been a week now, and that's actually still true. I'm not approaching this from some like ultra rich. I have all the answers. Look at my Lamborghini out in the garage or whatever kind of influencer, whatever. Quite the opposite. There's a lot of things that I still have yet to figure out, and it's some frustrations in my life, but um, God basically said to me, or kind of indicated to me in the midst of my conversation with him, that he's not a God of scarcity, but I'm treating him like he is. I believe I'm on a pathway. I don't know what the end of it looks like. I don't know all the details of it, but I believe on a pathway for a reason, and it can be scared. It can be a scary thing. And so when I hear God saying, "Do not be afraid anymore. Go on speaking. Do not be silent, for I'm with you, and no one will attack you in order to hurt you, because I have many people in the city." That's a cool thing for me to hear. And I have to wonder if this is God speaking to me right now, as I'm live on a video that is that. What I said in response to that was, I believe, help my unbelief. I think we kind of it's a hard thing for us to grasp what actual belief, what actual faith really is. Um, it's a tough one. I don't know how else to say it, and it's a bit of a conundrum. I mean, what should be binary, on or off, I believe or I don't believe. There are nuances where I can fully believe that that is true, yet in the moment I don't carry that out. So yeah, it's a tough one, but that's something I'm working through as well. So just know that I am here to study and observe as much as any of you. I don't have all the answers, but I'm looking. I am looking. I am seeking this out. This is the treasure that I am seeking here. Verse 11. So he settled there for a year and 6 months, teaching them the word of God concerning eternal salvation through faith in Christ. It's pretty impressive, actually. But when Gallio was proconsul of Acacia, Junius Gallio's term as proconsul was brief, a year, but is validated by an inscription found at Delphi. This is important because it establishes the date of Paul's visit to Corinth while on his second missionary journey, and sets the date of his letters to the church at Thessalonica. The Jews made a unified attack on Paul and brought him before the judgment seat. Yeah, so that's the tried cases from a large raised stone platform situated in the front of his official residence. Interesting. So they're declaring this man is persuading people to worship God in a violation of the law of Moses. But when Paul was about to reply, Gallio said to the Jews, "If it were a matter of some misdemeanor or serious crime, O Jews, I would have reason to put up with you. But since it is merely a question of the doctrine within your religion, about words and names and using your own law, see to it yourselves. I am unwilling to judge these matters. This sounds familiar. So Gallio, the proconsul, Acacio, in a sense, in essence, ruled Paul's teachings to be a form of Judaism and therefore legal under Roman law. Dropped the mic. And he drove them away from the judgment seat. Yeah. Then all the Greeks seized Sosthenes, the leader of the synagogue, and began beating him right in front of the judgment seat. But Gallio paid no attention to any of this. Ouch. As a leader of the synagogue, Sosthenes would have presented the charges against Paul. Apparently, something is related to this made him the target of the attack. If this Sosthenes is the same man mentioned in 1 Corinthians 1:1, he later became a believer and follower of Christ. Interesting. Huh. But I mean, it's, yeah. This is something where it's like they're trying to bring now law against. They can't win the arguments. They can't debate with Paul anymore. So they decide to go beyond their own borders, if you will. They're not going in the church anymore because Paul isn't preaching in the church anymore. He has changed that habit, apparently, from what we can tell here. You know, whether that means he's going to synagogue or not, I don't know. But I don't want to make assumptions. But based on the whole shaking out the robe thing, likely not. It's hard to say. But anyway, they're not dealing with it internally, and they're trying to do it externally. And what comes to mind is that no weapon formed against me will prosper kind of thing. Yeah, that's a weapon they're trying to form against Paul and trying to shut down the ministry, and it blows up in their face. Kind of wild story, but exactly. God, don't miss too. By the way, this is God fulfilling His promise. No one will attack you in order to hurt you. Now they'll still attack you, but not to hurt you. Yeah, it's kind of wild. Verse 18. Paul stayed for a while longer and told the brothers and sisters goodbye and sailed for Syria. Or brethren, okay. And he was accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Hello. There we go. At Cenchrea, the southeastern port of Corinth, he had his hair cut because he was keeping a Nazirite vow of abstention. So these are fascinating, probably to me because of the whole hair thing. But the Nazirite vow for an abstention. I don't want to misspeak here, but I'm fairly certain, and somebody can correct me and likely will, that what we're seeing here is that he had been keeping a Nazirite vow. So in other words, the Nazirites would vow to a certain behavior and not cut their hair because of it. Sort of like how I have in the past not cut my hair because I wanted to grow it out to be able to donate to Hair We Share. And it just dawns on me that there's a whole process there that I still wanted to do at some point, but just haven't gotten to. But anyway, it's a type of a commitment. Now, I think this means getting a haircut would indicate that is he's releasing that vow. But again, I'm not an expert on that. Don't quote me on that. But I thought I remember that that's the way that worked. So, but let's continue. Then they arrived at Ephesus. Ephesus. I know words. And he left the others there. But he entered the synagogue and reasoned and debated with the Jews. When they asked him to stay for a longer time, he refused. But after telling them goodbye and saying, I will return again if God is willing, he set sail from Ephesus. I'm trying to think of what. Gotta admit, this is kind of a weird sequence of storytelling here. So he arrived at a port in Corinth, and he had a haircut. We don't know what he had for dinner, but we know he got a haircut. And then they arrived at Ephesus, assuming they're just on a pathway here and not intending to stay. Um, but he entered the synagogue because that was his pattern, reasoned and debated with the Jews, and they asked him to stay this time. So a very different result. Return again if God's willing. A little bit of a yeah, kind of a foreshadowing kind of a thing, yeah. Verse 22. When he had landed at Caesarea, he went up and greeted the church at Jerusalem, and then went down to Antioch. Wow. Yeah, okay. So this is the end of the second missionary journey. Yeah, that's been a long journey at that. But this is not a small amount of miles. Just to say, on foot especially. This is not a small amount of ground covered here. All right. Goodness gracious me, yeah, this is getting long, isn't it? But hopefully this is still adding value to you, and you haven't unsubscribed quite yet. I hope you've subscribed. I hope this is the kind of value you like, because I enjoy doing it, and so I'm hoping to find more people that enjoy doing it with me. Verse 23, after spending some time there in Antioch, he left and traveled through the territory of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening and encouraging all the disciples. Now, a Jew named Apollos, native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent and cultured man, well versed in the Hebrew scriptures. This man had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and being spiritually impassioned, he was speaking and teaching accurately both things about Jesus, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly and fearlessly in the synagogue. But when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained more accurately to him the way of God and the full story life of Christ. And when Apollos wanted to go to Acacia, southern Greece, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples, urging them to welcome him gladly. Okay, back up a second. So Apollos is a Jew and has been speaking, instructing, but he knew only the baptism of John. So this highlighting is not working consistently. There we go. So the question comes up, if you if you are ignorant of all the facts, do you speak any less passionately? And don't mistake my wording. I said it on purpose. Ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is just simply not knowing and not being aware. And so speaking boldly and fearlessly, even though he doesn't have all the information, makes perfect sense to me. But the key here is what happens when this couple corrects him. They didn't do so in public. They took him aside and explained act more accurately to them the way of God and the full life story of Christ. So yeah, and so then we're seeing what happens after that. That's probably the most important part here is that okay, so he's been corrected by as someone who didn't ever see Christ was corrected by someone else, another couple that had not themselves seen Christ, but they knew the story, and so they corrected that part of it. And so, verse 27 here. And when Apollos wanted to go across to Acacia, southern Greece, the brothers encouraged him, wrote to the disciples. Sorry, I read that already. When he arrived, he was a great help to those who, through grace, had believed and followed Jesus as Lord and Savior, for he powerfully refuted the Jews in public at discussions, proving by the scriptures that Jesus is the Christ, Messiah. So, yeah. So we have someone who is now another voice that is very strong. And so he's a great help to those who believed. It's actually interesting. I'm looking at the structure here. He was a great help to those who had believed and followed Jesus because he powerfully refuted the Jews in public. It's almost like he helped justify them a little bit and embolden them that no, you're okay. So I don't know what I'm seeing here though as um, a leadership trait is that it's important to keep learning. It's important to be open to learning new things. It's important to be open to correction and not be prideful. If Apollos was a prideful man, he would have rejected that, right? And said, yeah, yeah. And honestly, I don't want to assume I know all the story here, but I did see that there was a private correction here, which is a important thing because that indicates that this couple, Priscilla and Aquila, had known Jesus's direction on that, and so was following that, which is a good indication that they had heard the full life and the full story of Christ. It's a good indicator to me, because that's not our default setting, is to correct in private. The default is to correct right in the moment. And certainly we see a lot of that today, and yeah. I tell you what, there's just a lot to process, and so I hope this was been was Ben. Wow, wow, Deej. I hope this has been helpful to you, regardless. Um, yeah, yeah, really love your support. If you have any questions or comments, any verses that stood out to you, or any things that were impactful for you today, I do encourage you to actually let me challenge you on something. If there was something like that, what I'd love you to do is go back to that point in the video and notice the timestamp of that. And what you can do on YouTube, I don't know if this happens in Facebook or not, but what you can do is say, at, and then you put the minutes and minutes colon seconds. This impacted me because of this, or I had a question about this. What that does is it helps others to go directly to that point, because that little link that's formed there actually lets them go to that. So if you want to, that's a challenge that I'll have for you. But otherwise, just let me know what verses stood out to you. I'd appreciate it. And then obviously we have one more time, or not one more time, but once again, our giveaway we're doing. It is the Jesus the High Road Leader. This very book, this very hardcover, uh, 18.99, whatever, will be sent to you if you're here in the U.S. and that you are the winner of our drawing to do this. So the more you enter, the more you win, kind of thing. It's entries are participation. So whether you share it, I think sharing is worth 5 entries. I think if somebody signs up for the giveaway based on your link, it generates 5. You can also just generate ones by like going and subscribing to the YouTube channel and things like that. So there's lots of ways to participate and win, or participate and then have more entries into the drawing to win, I should say. So it's a fun little activity, and it's a investment that I'm making, sure, but I'm hoping that it's something that is a blessing to others. My intention is to do a study on this book within the next few months. I'm actually trying to get the final okay to do that officially, and if not, we'll just do it unofficially. Because I think this is a powerful message that needs to be studied right now. We need more leaders that are willing to take the high road and not just be high above us, so to speak. So anyway, I do encourage you to jump into that, and I will plan on seeing you once again tomorrow. I believe I can open this up and verify, but I believe we're at the same exact time tomorrow. And yes, same exact time tomorrow and Friday. And I may just keep it 11 a.m. Central on Saturday as well. I haven't made up my mind on that one. It's open field, so we'll see what happens with that one. But plan on 11 Central again tomorrow. I'll see you then. Be blessed by the best, and then go be a blessing to all the rest. Love you guys. Bye now.